A situation that commonly comes up in the lab is that we have some sort of waste chemical at the end of whatever experiment we're doing. And this could also happen in something like a maintenance area if you're using a chemical for cleaning and you have this waste product at the end of the day. And you might ask, what do I need to do with this? Is this something that can go down the drain, can go into the regular trash, or do I need to dispose of this in a different way? And this is where hazardous waste procedures come in. So with hazardous waste, there are very few things where we can look on a list and actually see something listed as a hazardous waste. The government publishes a list of a very limited number of chemicals that it defines as hazardous waste. Other things, though, are defined as hazardous waste through their characteristics. So if something is flammable, if it's corrosive, if it's reactive, or if it's toxic, it's automatically classified as a hazardous waste. So most of the things that we come across working in the lab are going to be hazardous waste because they meet one of those characteristics. If something does not meet one of those characteristics, then it's not a hazardous waste and it can be disposed of through regular means. But if there's any doubt, treat something as a hazardous waste and we can figure out later whether or not it really needs to be picked up by a hazardous waste handler or if we can dispose of it through regular means. Now, if you do know that something has one of these hazardous characteristics and it needs to be disposed of properly, there are a few procedures to follow. Hazardous waste should be collected in compatible containers. That means that it's something that's not going to be damaged by the chemical you're putting inside. The other things that this container needs are proper labeling. We always need to know what's inside this container. So you should have the full chemical name of the contents of the container. We want to know how long this container's been around, so you need to have the accumulation start date, or the date that you start adding material to that container. And you also need the words hazardous waste to be included on that container so that we know that it's hazardous waste. Hazardous waste containers are kept in an area of the laboratory that we've designated called the satellite accumulation area. So each laboratory should have one of these areas, and there should be a sign that says satellite accumulation area, and also gives some of the general rules for putting containers in that area and how they should be labeled. So this is the satellite accumulation area for this lab. To keep containers in this area as we're filling them. So if we're generating the same waste over and over, we can keep this container here until it's full and then contact EH&S in order for them to pick up the container and move it to our central waste storage area where it can wait for pickup. Another important thing in this waste accumulation area is a secondary container. So I have my primary container that's containing my waste. There's also this bin, which is a secondary container. And this is there in case I do have any leaks of my waste container. This will catch those leaks, prevent them from going into the drain, and prevent them from escaping to the environment. So another important thing that should be in all of these satellite accumulation areas is secondary containment. One last thing, if you're generating a waste product where you're not sure if it's going to be a hazardous waste or not, if you're going to, for instance, ask a supervisor later whether or not this is a hazardous waste, you can label it with words like unwanted material or unwanted chemicals. And again, make sure you put the full chemical name and the date. But this way, we're not putting the words hazardous waste right away. We're keeping the option open to make that determination later. But we're still marking the container as something that's a waste product, something that we're going to be disposing of at a later time. So that's the summary for hazardous waste. If you have any questions here, consult the EHS staff or contact an immediate supervisor to route you in the right direction.